This is Geoffrey Beavers, and you will obey me. You will listen to the sirens of audio.
No, can't do that.
You're a bad boy. Don't even know what you're looking at.
No. G'day, audiophiles. This is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who in the audio medium. I'm Dwayne.
And I'm Philip. G'day, Drain. G'day, audiophiles.
G'day, Philip. How's things?
Things are great.
Are they really?
Well, we're getting on an hour later because of internet problems and life is exhausting. But no, life is good.
Gotta love the internet.
You do.
It's been a very busy month, hasn't it? We've had the Janet Fielding events. We've got the Sophie Aldred event coming up next week. So for those in Sydney or those who can get to Sydney next week, do not forget to grab your tickets to see Sophie Aldred. We've been getting lots of positive comments about our smaller fan-led conventions, and I think this one's going to be just building on the success of the last one, Philip.
Yeah, I've been thrilled by hearing all the positive comments that people are making and how much they're enjoying it. Yeah, it's going great, and just 2 VIP tickets have just sold in the last 24 hours. One just
wow.
ago. Yeah,
Cool.
So there's still a couple of places left for dinner, but yeah, we're running out of dinner spaces. That's good.
Yes, and we had lots of fun last time. Which, if you haven't heard that episode, go back and listen to our debrief, where we talk a little bit about the dinner with Janet Fielding and some of the fun that we had on that occasion. But today, this episode is slightly delayed. It's a slightly delayed installment of what we like to call
We've got randomoids.
Yes, we are going to be talking about 2 stories, very briefly, that we that we pulled out of the Randomoid Selectortron. What?
He says it hopefully, very briefly. That's just so you know, audiophiles, that's for my benefit, which is just shut up, don't say too much. But
I always say that to you, Philip, and it just
it
never
happens.
ever works.
I know, you live in hope, I know.
But yes, the Doctor Who, the early adventures, the Ravelli Conspiracy by Tom Salinsky and Robert Kahn. That is the first one that we're going to discuss. And the second one is Patient Zero by Nicholas Briggs, which is a 6th Doctor and Charlie main adventure. So those are coming up while Philip's dogs go nuts in the background. I love your dogs. They're very cute.
My son's just walked in the house, and so they're excited to see him.
That's okay. I'll do some creative editing in the edit. But before we do that, Philip, I'm going to start off a little bit differently. Normally at the end of the episode, we talk briefly about what we've been listening to. But I would like to do that right now. So what I've been listening... Actually, no, I can't talk about what I've been listening to, Philip, because it's your turn. You go first.
Oh, is this a recommendation, what we've been listening to?
Yeah.
Which one
it's
is
the same thing. Same
thing? Okay. Well, I'm gonna be biased and put a special recommendation along the way. What I've been listening to in terms of my audio listening, when I've not been listening to these 2 things that we're just about to talk about, I have started listening to Rani. I don't even know what it's called. Is it Rani Takes on the World?
I think it is, yeah. I haven't started on that myself.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to find it. I've lost it now totally. Yes, Beyond Bannerman Road. So Rani Takes on the World. So I've only listened to the first episode so far because I've just been doing too many other things, but really enjoyed it. It's a time loopy sort of story. It's got Rani and Clive, and they're just lovely and charming, and it's a fun time loop. It's not a Sarah Jane adventure as such. I think it's got a slightly different feel to it. It's certainly a bit more adult without being too adult. So I'm looking forward to seeing where the tone is going to be set. because I know they've deliberately not gone for the Sarah Jane Adventures tone, but they're also not going for Doctor Who tone either. So I'm curious to see what's going on there. I've also listened to the first episode so far of The New Survivors, The New Dawn, and that is as bleak and depressing as ever. I listened to one episode, I thought, I can't do another one at the moment. I need something a bit happier to listen to. I love The Survivors, and I do actually love the bleakness, and I think the sound design, and they're just amazingly made, but they're just so bleak. And yeah, with the frame of mind I was in, I don't think I could listen to any more. So they're the two things I've been sort of starting to get into, but also just run off my feet a bit. But I think I'm going to recommend my some of you would know my second son is a band called Carpet Burn, and I was actually at a gig last night, which is part of the reason I'm feeling a bit wrecked. I'm too old to go to bars for gigs, I think I've decided. And you know what? They were checking, we had to line up as they was checking everybody's age before they went in. And my wife and I arrived and they just waved us through. Like they didn't even have the courtesy to, I was going to get my license out to prove I was over 18. But you know what? They didn't even want to check. So depressing.
That's outrageous.
I know, unbelievable. But anyhow, so he's a band called Carpet Burn. If you're on Spotify or Apple Music, if you search the artist Carpet Burn, they've got a couple of songs out. They've just released a new song today. So if you like indie music, rock, and actually, Dwayne, you'd actually probably like it. It's your style.
I've heard some stuff before.
You've heard some stuff before. So anyhow, he's got some new stuff out. So
cool.
Yeah, download some Carpet Burn because they need some numbers and they want to get some. Who knows? Maybe they'll become famous and he'll become rich and give me stuff.
I will. I will check it out, and I will most definitely put a link in the description. So
yeah, even feel free to play. Even feel free to play a bit. I'm sure that's fine.
Yes, I will throw in a bit right here.
Give me one more drink to make me stay, to keep myself at bay. Give me one more drink to make me stay, to keep myself at bay. Give me one more drink to talk me off, to wash it all away. It's not fair, no one cares about me. I just wanna go back home.
Right.
Was that fantastic?
It was awesome.
Maybe I'm biased. Anyhow,
Maybe just a touch.
Don't know what the rest of you think. You can let me know.
Yeah.
What about you, Dwayne? Have you had time to listen to stuff?
Well, I have, because I've started some new employment recently, which involves a lot of driving. So I've had the opportunity to catch up on a few things that I've been meaning to get to, particularly the Fifth Doctor Adventures Conflicts of Interest with Janet Fielding, of course. There are a couple of great stories. Have you had a chance to listen to that?
No,
oh, you haven't.
I've got them. I haven't listened to them. And I wanted to listen to them while she was still here, and I just never got to it.
Well, it wasn't quite released when she was here. Sort of released towards the end of her visit here.
I think it got released while she was in Tasmania, actually.
Yeah.
So I had hopes to try and listen to it in that week before Brisbane, and it just didn't happen. And then it went on the back burner.
Sorry, too busy.
Yeah.
Too busy. But that one's really good. I've also caught up with the Fourth Doctor Adventures, New Frontiers. So with the new companion, Margaret, who is travelling along. Nice. I like the older companions. Evelyn set a good precedent with older companions. So that's really nice. Two great stories there. Ice Warriors story. And I just finished listening to Antilia the Lost today. Speaking of Bannerman Road, Anjali Mahindra is also in that story, Antilia the Lost, from the Fourth Doctor Adventures, which would have been recorded many years ago. So,
yes.
And because I finished that earlier today, on the drive home, I was able to listen to the first episode. Finally, it's been out a couple of months now, but the first episode of the second box set of the 11th Doctor Chronicles, the All of Time and Space box set. And what a fantastic story the opening one is. I can't wait to get into the rest. They just capture the 11th Doctor era like Nick Briggs, I think he's directing that. So he likes capturing the early eras, but he's got the 11th Doctor era down pat. And Jacob Dudman is just wonderful.
Yeah, he's.
So I'll recommend all of those, and that is what I have been listening to.
Brilliant.
So next, you know what, Philip?
No, what, Dwayne?
I think you do. We are going to jump down the rabbit hole. Let's go.
We're all over the place.
What do you mean?
We did recommendations first, now we're down the rabbit hole. What on earth's coming next?
Yeah, who knows? We're just mixing it up. I'm feeling crazy today. Things are sending me off the tree. Okay. Now, recently a person on Twitter gave us an idea for a rabbit hole, and I'm going to throw this question at you, Philip, because I'm sure you remember it. It's from the Between the Pages blog, and it reads, I have a question for a future rabbit hole, which is right now, in fact. The best Big Finish stories are often ones where all the puzzle pieces come together at the end. When I listen to a story like that, I'm tempted to re-listen to the story immediately because it will make more sense. Hang on, it's a two-threader. The second time while it's fresh in my mind. How do you two handle this? Do you re-listen to stories immediately? Or just know that when you revisit them at a future date, you'll remember some of the story elements? Go for it, Philip. Your answer, please.
What a good question. Before I started doing this podcast, I would have listened to it again straight away. Of course, I was listening to less back then.
Yeah.
I, at times, struggle to find the time I need to get through as much as I get through. And so, I mean, the last time I remember doing it was with the Companion Chronicles Jigsaw, which is a Jamie Companion Chronicle, where the entire story is chopped up and put into bits, so none of it's in the right order. And so it was hard work getting through. But I loved it, and then I listened to it again straight away because I knew where it was heading. And there's a reason why it's all in the wrong order, and it's very clever. And you can actually, if you had a CD player, I could put it on your phone, listen to it in the right order and get the story. But the reason why it's all cut up is part of the complex plot of it all. So I certainly listened to that straight away. Actually, the John Dorney one recently in Stranded, which went backwards, I re-listened to that within a week because I wanted to have another re-listen in terms of the progress and where it went.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's called What Just Happened.
I think it is.
That's pretty impressive. I can put that out of my head without looking it up.
Yeah.
So that's more recent. That's part of the Stranded series. So I love to listen to them again straight away, but I don't always get a chance. Actually, there was one of the Blake Sevens I recently listened to again. One of the ones with Stephen Greif just after he'd passed away, and I was just feeling like I wanted to hear it again.
Mm-hmm.
But mostly when I come back, it's a refreshing thing in terms of knowing where it's heading and listening out for things. But sometimes I've even forgotten some of the big plot twists along the way, and I get all surprised again. And one of the great things about the Randomoids is we often dive back a long way. Actually, it's not the long way ones, because the early ones I listened to several times.
We know those ones very well. Because there wasn't as much around.
That's right. It's the ones between probably 100 and 120 where I'm most vague about, because I've listened to them probably only once. So when we dive back into those ones, it's actually quite, I've forgotten this. And one of the Randomoids we're doing today, I had never listened to before, because when I went searching for it on my app, it wasn't there. And I went, I've never bought this. And so, I had to go and rectify that to listen to it. That's how I do it. What about you? What do you do, Dwayne?
I'm very much the same with the volume of stuff that comes out. Even before the podcast started, I think I was going, when the story came along where all the pieces came together right at the end, I went, isn't that a great idea? Didn't that work out well? Isn't that fascinating? And then I'd be going, okay, what's next? So I'd be still looking for the next story. But there are many, many stories that I do enjoy listening to. And I've actually been listening to recently stories that we've been reviewing. I have been listening to them twice before reviewing them.
Wow.
And even the Tom Baker Antilia the Lost, I listened to that again. I listened to about halfway through But the main reason for that is because I got distracted, and there were certain things that were happening within the story that I didn't quite understand. So I thought, nah, I've got to go back to the start and get these things a bit clearer in my head. So I often find that distractions make me want to listen again, rather than, oh, isn't this wonderful? If it's wonderful, I know that one day, if I ever get back to it, I'll be able to enjoy it again. But yeah, it's distractions that are making me listen.
I sometimes replay scenes or tracks because I sort of think, oh, hang on, what happened there? And how do we get to the end? So, yeah, sometimes I do replay tracks more than entire stories, though. What a good question.
Yeah, but great question. So keep those coming. If you want to tweet us at Audio Sirens, please do with any of your future rabbit hole topic suggestions. We would love to get those from you and have a little chat about them like we did just then. So that's our rabbit hole topic. It's time to jump into the two stories that we're going to review. I'm going to throw it in again, in what we like to call...
We've got randomoids.
Yes, we've got randomoids. So the very first one I thought we'd talk about is the early adventures, the Ravelli Conspiracy. So I'll read the blog for that, or the blurb for that. It says, when the TARDIS lands in a house in Florence, Italy, 1514, it isn't long before the guards of Giuliano de Medici arrest Stephen and Vicky. To rescue them, the Doctor has to employ the help of the house's owner, one Niccolo Machiavelli. But can he be completely trusted? Giuliano confesses to his brother Pope Leo X that he has angered the wealthy family of Ravelli and believes the newcomers may be part of an assassination plot. But when the Doctor arrives in an already tricky situation starts to spiral out of control. As the city rings with plot and counterplot, betrayal and lies abound. The Doctor and his friends must use all their ingenuity if they're not to be swept away by history. This conspiracy is about to get complicated. Here's a blurb. Here's a trailer for that one.
Well, if we are on Earth, it's hundreds of years before my time.
And mine.
Smell the air! No pollution! No chemicals! A fine summer's day in... Yes, a fine Florentine summer.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions. Doctor Who, The Early Adventures. The Ravelli Conspiracy.
I am Niccolo Machiavelli.
Are you? Are you now indeed? I see.
This man is a saboteur, an assassin.
Is he? Are you an assassin or a saboteur, my dear man?
Oh, history will take its course, my dear. It's not our responsibility.
His Holiness the Pope's wooden box.
It is not his wooden box, it's the Doctor's.
The prisoner! Guard! Caesar! I will capture them, interrogate them, and have them publicly executed.
So there's nothing in this period we need to watch out for. Oh, there's a little backstabbing, I suppose. Some plots, the odd civil war, torture, religious persecution, and the ever-constant threat of violence and damnation should we be foolish enough to criticize the current religious orthodoxy.
Big Finish. We love stories.
Right, then perhaps we should go.
No, please. I'm sure we'll be safe.
All right, Philip. So, how recently did you listen to this? Only in the last day or so?
Today.
Today. Okay. Give us your rundown on this historical featuring the First Doctor, Stephen and Vicky. What were your thoughts?
What were my thoughts? Let me start with my thoughts on the early adventures. Is this the first early adventure we have done?
No. We've done a couple of others. I think we did the Sontarans at one point.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So let me start off with my... It was, as I said, I didn't actually have this. When I went looking for it and searching for it, I didn't have it. And I searched, not on the app, and and I sort of looked through, and then went onto the website and thought, oh, I've never actually bought this one. And I realized that I actually bought nothing in this whole season 3 of Early Adventures. And I looked back into season 2 and went, I think the Early Adventures replaced the Companion Chronicles. And I have never been particularly convinced as to the purpose of them in terms of, I think people know I'm a huge fan of the Companion Chronicles. I think they're inventive and creative. And I love the Big Finish full cast audio dramas, but I can't quite work out where the early adventures fit in terms of the narration. And I don't understand why you wouldn't just make them full cast audio plays. Because, I mean, this is a full cast. I mean, the cast is as big as any Doctor Who story. And yet you have this narration. And to me, it just seems a bit... And nothing against the authors who are writing, because they're writing to the style they've been asked to write for. But it just feels lazy having the narration in terms of either have a play or have a companion chronicle. But to try and mix the two, it just did. Sometimes it works well, but often. And so obviously when this whole season, season 3 of Early Adventures came out, I didn't buy any of them. And I realized I didn't have any season 3 or season 4. I think Sontarans is a season 4 one, and that's the only one I've got.
It's the one that follows this.
Oh, is that 3.4 then, is it?
Next release, Doctor Who, the Sontarans. Must be 3.4.
Okay. Actually, I'm having a quick look just because I'm curious now to see. It is 3.4. Okay, so I had bought the Sontarans. So, actually, Simon Giria, that might have been why. And it's Jean Marsh. So, yeah, so the Sontarans I'd bought, but 3.1...
Maybe you bought it for the time we reviewed it.
Yeah, no, I had listened to before that, but 1, 2, 3 I did have. So there's lots of early, and I actually look through now. I don't have them all, and I've still got a number of gaps in the early adventures. So yeah, so I guess they just haven't been something that have hugely appealed to me. Though the last couple, I think there was a Dodo one that came, a couple of Dodo ones that came out, and and even one with who was the Katrina who died in the. There's one with
Katarina,
Katarina. So I have got those last two. That must be the last two that have come out, which was that was a while ago now. I do have them. So early adventures, I've always struggled with because I just don't like the narration. In terms of this, I think it has some good comedy moments. I think it's a historical. It's trying to be comic. Machiavelli I've heard of because we all talk about Machiavellian attitudes and dictatorships, but I didn't actually know anything about him at all. I do think that they've really captured the period in terms of you've got the heightened language. It's not Shakespearean, but it's heightened language. You've got the Pope. You've got the comedy happening in terms of different characters with the Pope. You've got plotting and things, but in terms of a lot of drive, I don't think it had that. So I think it had potential. I do think I listened to it very fast today and maybe didn't do the time I needed to get into it. But such is life. That's my initial thoughts. I do think, I love Stephen. I love Peter Purvis. I think his impression of the First Doctor I still really enjoy because it's got real heart to it. It's not a perfect William Hartnell. It's not perfect William Hartnell, but I do think it's a great First Doctor. I do think the emotion, heart's there. Maureen O'Brien, I think her voice sounds so young. I get really impressed by. She must have said so young. And of course, Peter Purvis, 3 totally different voices. He's got the Doctor, he's got Stephen, who's young, he's got the narrator voice. Totally different, which is interesting. And it's a good cast. Amazingly, most of the cast have done nothing else but this. I sort of had to look through. I think there's only one cast member who's done... Oh, Olivia Poulet, of course, comes back in the Avengers as Mrs. Peel, and she's wonderful. But I think there's only one of the... Of course, besides the companion, all male cast, typical.
Isn't she Avalon as well?
And she's Avalon as well, that's right, in Blake 7. I think Lisa Bowerman has done a good job casting, but it's interesting that none of the cast reappear anywhere else. This is basically their one and only story, which is unusual, because usually we finish replots. So I have more questions at the end of this than I have answers to. And I must admit, I was keen, and we just ran out of time, to speak to Robert Kahn and Tom Salinsky and get a bit more background about how this came about and why they chose this period, if they chose the period or they were given the period. So I actually have more questions than answers, to be honest.
Okay.
But yeah, bits that I thought there was. It's not laugh out loud funny, but there was bits that made me smirk and think, "Oh yeah, that's clever what they're doing there."
Same here.
Okay, Dwayne, what do you think?
Well, first of all, let me address what you said before about the early adventures replacing the Companion Chronicles. I I don't know. I think they're two different things. I see where you're coming from with the fact that you're using the narration as part of the storytelling style. But I think the early adventures were created more to create the era rather than the companion chronicles, which were there to do something very experimental. So they weren't necessarily there to recreate the era. They were there to do something interesting with a very, very small cast. I think they started off, like even the Third Doctor started off, when they cast Tim Treloar, started off with a bit this style, and then it sort of evolved out into full cast without any narration whatsoever. And the early adventures were the same. The later early adventures dropped the narration as well. So I can't remember when it was they did that, but towards the end there was no narration. Particularly, I think that Katarina one.
I was thinking the Dawn of the Gods, there is a narration there, is there? There's not at all.
No.
And I don't think the Dead Sin has any.
No. No, definitely
either.
not in that one. Definitely not in that one. So, perhaps it was something they were feeling nervous about for some reason. They didn't want to let that storytelling go so that they could keep hold of the story. I don't know. As far as this story goes, I concur wholeheartedly with all of your points, so I don't have to repeat myself. What I do with historical stories or historical characters in Doctor Who that I know nothing about is I usually just jump on Google. I do a Google search or a Wikipedia search and just quickly do a rundown of the historical figures. I didn't do anything on Machiavelli, even though I think this story was written on the basis of that last line with the First Doctor saying, "Oh, that's rather Machiavellian, he," and then sort of working that story up to that point. That's something that I would go, "Oh, that's a good idea. Let's make a story so the Doctor ends up saying that." But I was interested in the Medicis and their history, so I quickly looked at that. And I know there's been a recent TV series that I never saw. I never watched them.
No, you shouldn't. I think it's R-rated, so you shouldn't watch that.
Shouldn't I? I'm too young for that.
You're too young.
Yeah. So I haven't seen that, and I looked at the Wikipedia entry and it's so long and complex, I just went, nah, I haven't got time for this. So I think it's very interesting, the Medici dynasty, but, it just didn't grab me. So overall, the historical period, I didn't find very interesting, and so I don't think the story captured me as much as it would have otherwise. Does that make sense?
Yeah, total. I guess my love for history, I think, came out of Doctor Who. And so there's all sorts of periods of history that I've studied because of Doctor Who and researched and gone into detail. I actually think that, with a bit more time, this story could actually make me look into it a bit more. And, as you said, look into the Medicis and all that. I was just rushed for time. So
is this a family that...
I'm not sure I've done this. I'm not sure I've done this story the service it deserved.
Yeah. Me too, to be honest. But the Medicis, is that where... Because weren't they, like, the doctors in the Medici family? So is that where the word medicine comes from?
I have no idea.
So I'm only assuming. So if I just was looking through, this is Wikipedia. They go, oh, there were doctors here, and they started some doctors. Was it a university for doctors? I don't know. And I thought, oh, medicine, Medici. That kind of could be. Someone might have to correct me on that because I couldn't be bothered to do the research. Just tweet us at Audio Sirens. Thanks. So, but I love the way that the early adventures recreate the era. So all of those aspects that I love about the First Doctor are in there. And yeah, I always love Lisa Bauman's direction too. So all those aspects I enjoyed. Just at the end of it, like you, I didn't really have questions. I just went, oh, okay. I didn't quite get as much out of it as I'd hoped. Put it that way.
I think the fact that the Medici's name is similar to medicine is a coincidence, because the Latin, it comes from Latin, and the root verb is mediri, which means to heal. So,
okay. So there you go.
A healer is medicina is healing.
Yep.
So, excellent. But yeah, Medici does sound very similar. And Italian, Latin, same basis. Italian came from, of course.
For sure.
All linked together.
Thanks for doing that research that took you 5 seconds, which I could have done myself.
Google is your friend. That's what I've learned.
All right, let's move on to the next story in our randomoid selection, and that is Patient Zero, number 124 in the monthly range. So I'll read the blurb for that. Finally, the Sixth Doctor challenges Charlotte Pollard to tell him the truth. Who is she really? What is she doing in the TARDIS? To discover the answers, the Doctor must travel back in time beyond all known civilizations to the vast, mysterious, amethyst viral containment station. But answers lie within the TARDIS too. Someone who has been there a long, long time. Meanwhile, the Daleks have travelled back in time on their own mission to bring them the ultimate victory they crave. But it is a mission so complex and delicate that even they know they must beware the web of time. Who is Patient Zero? What has happened to Charlie? And why have the legendary Virons been summoned? Here's a trailer.
Coming soon from Big Finish Productions.
What's happening?
665, has the execution of the Doctor been completed?
Charlie!
There are spatio-temporal imperatives we must obey.
Charlotte Pollard.
Who are you and what are you doing here?
This will be the first of many of your fellow creatures to die.
Charlotte, come back to me. Hold on.
Stay back. Do not move. Stay back.
What exactly is Patient Zero?
I love you.
Oh, we're still in the TARDIS.
None of them stay. And neither will you, Charlie. You'll leave just like all the rest of them.
The Daleks will be victorious.
The Virons?
Charlie!
All right, Philip, you love your Charlotte Pollards. How did you go re-listening to Patient Zero?
Okay, I certainly entered this one with joy because, as you know, I love my Charlotte, and I think Charlotte works with the Sixth Doctor. So, for people who aren't aware, because people often get confused with Charlotte with the Sixth Doctor, because Charlotte was, of course, the Doctor so the companion who travelled with the Eighth Doctor. She was created for him, and they do work beautifully together. And when she left him, it was tragic. But for those, in terms of the chronology, she gets left behind, the TARDIS reappears, but the wrong TARDIS has come back. So the Eighth Doctor actually thinks Charlotte is dead. She thinks the Eighth Doctor is dead too, for that matter, because she's pretty sure he's died, even though he hasn't. And by chance, the Sixth Doctor arrives at the time where she's just been left by the Doctor, and she's now travelling with the Sixth Doctor. But because she has seen the Doctor die in the future, she feels she can't let the Sixth Doctor know any of that because she understands the web of time, and she's almost destroyed the whole universe because of the web of time. So she's been keeping very secret about who she is, how she understands things, but she keeps letting things out. She knows things that she shouldn't know, and so the Sixth Doctor's very curious about her, but also cares about her. And so they have a lovely dynamic between them, where she knows his future and believes she knows his death. He knows she knows something, but can't work out how. But they still are obviously very fond because that attraction of Doctor companion, and she has all the things a companion should have. It just works, and so the two of them are just amazing together. And originally they were supposed to. This is back when Big Finish was doing trilogies,
yeah,
each Doctor, and so you get 3 months with one Doctor, then 3 months of another Doctor, then 3 months, and then you usually get 3 random ones at the end of the year. So you would basically, it was just fifth, sixth. It was 5th, 6th, and 7th, wasn't it? We're rotating.
At this stage.
The 8th Doctor was having his own sets. And 4th Doctor, I think, I'm not sure whether this had started yet. This is 2009.
A bit close, but he was always separate to the main range.
He was always separate to the main range as well. So it was back when the main range was being treated a bit differently. And so originally, I think there was supposed to only be 3 stories with them, but they were so good they gave them 6, and then they were enjoying themselves. They gave them 9, and then some specials. So this is the last trilogy of stories for the Sixth Doctor and Charlotte. But it really kicks off with a big bang. Now, it's interesting because it's written by Nicholas Briggs and Mark Platt, The next one, the trilogy, is written by Mark Platt, which is called Paper Cuts. And then the one after that is written by...
I suspect that it's the Companion Chronicles special that's on the end that's written by Mark Platt. Because it's one of those website things where they don't split the names and the credits properly. If you look on the cover, it's just Nicholas Briggs. But because I thought that too, and then you've got the...
Well, Paper Cuts is by Mark Platt, though.
Yeah,
and then Blue Forgotten Planet is Nicholas Briggs. Okay.
So it'd be the three... is it the three companions? No?
It is the three companions. So at the end of each story, there's also a chopped up about 5 or 10 minutes with the Brigadier, Polly, and then Thomas Brewster comes in as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. That makes so much more sense. So Nicholas Briggs wrote this. Mark Platt wrote Paper Cuts, and then Nicholas Briggs wrote Blue Forgotten Planet. Okay. But they keep... Okay, it's just... Okay. Can I just say, website Big Finish sucks big time, and casting too, because when I saw Nicholas Briggs in the cast, I was going, hang on, what was he in? And then once again had to realise the fact that they've just added those names in. Oh boy, I hate that they do that. Anywho, so this is by Nicholas Briggs, which makes perfect sense because it's so much adventure, shoot 'em up, action, running around. That's very with a bit of timey-wimey thrown in. It makes much more sense that it's Nicholas Briggs. Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to how they've done all the names. Okay, never mind. What else was I going to say? Dalek story, which is interesting. New race introduced, which is the Vians, which will end up becoming...
Was this their first appearance in anything, Big Finish?
I'm pretty sure it is their first appearance. So... Yep. And they're really great. They're going to come back in Blue Forgotten Planet as well, and then play a major role in the Charlotte Pollard, because Charlotte Pollard will go on after this trilogy. She'll go on to have her own box sets.
Is it three series?
There's supposed to be
or is it 2?
It's 2 so far. So right. As I said, I think this is 2009. I think we get the next box. Her first box is in 2014. The second box is in 2017. And we're still waiting for the third box set, which Nicholas Briggs says he's writing, but it hasn't appeared yet. And we're fortunate, actually, because we had the Further Adventurous box set recently with Charlotte Pollard, which made my day. I was a very happy boy when that came out.
Yep.
What can I say? It's a small cast. It's trapped on a small ship. Nicholas Briggs has been there's a character called Fratlin, and there's hundreds of him, but it's all played by the same actor. Daleks. Colin Baker was being interviewed in the extras, and he was just talking about what a small cast it was of actors, because there was just him, India, and I think he talked about Fratlin, and he left off Nicholas Briggs out of the actors, which I just thought...
I noticed that too.
And I went, oh, that's so unfair, because but I don't know why people seem to think that the Daleks aren't a major acting role, because it's such an important acting role. Anyhow, everybody here...
Maybe he was just thinking of Nick as the director.
The director maybe was. And maybe the Daleks hadn't come in yet, so he hadn't realised the Daleks were coming. But anyhow, I was annoyed in terms of, Nicholas Briggs is an amazing actor, and the Daleks wouldn't be the Daleks without him. And and so I go back and watch early, new classic series Daleks, and just cringe often at the voices and the sometimes not good acting that's happening, because I guess we value voice work, don't we? So
yes,
we know that's good. Aside from that, I mean, put together, Alan Barnes doing the script editing, the sound design is great, but I don't know who's done anything now because it's too many people. I was trying to work out how Nicholas Briggs and Lisa Bowerman managed to both direct this, but it makes sense now. Nicholas Briggs directed it. Lisa Bowerman directed the Companion Chronicles. Of course she did. Mm-hmm. But also on this CD, there's a bit of Companion Chronicles, which is great.
Yes.
And it was just a way to introduce people to some of the Companion Chronicles, which is basically the Brigadier and Polly having a chat about the Doctor, and they're telling stories to each other. But you really have to buy the whole set of CDs. You can actually now buy that as one.
I think it's a 10. Is it a 10-part story. I think you can
I've got
buy it as a bulk.
I've got a feeling it's more than that. There was a box set of Companion Chronicles that came out with this as being one of the CDs. This story. There's a Turlo one on it as well, and something else. I do remember coming out as a box set, which I've got somewhere. Because I do remember, waiting a month for the next installment was just agony.
But I did listen to that while I was listening for this review, and it was interesting hearing Nick Courtney do his version of the Third Doctor.
Yes.
That was great.
It was. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And I just love them to talk about each other's doctors. And of course, Alistair knows, Lethbridge knows, which is Polly's, and, Polly doesn't say, oh, well, you're doctor. What was your impressions? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a fantastic science fiction story. I love the concept behind it. And because we've got this, can we do a bit of spoiling? Can we do that?
Yeah, so
it's got the Virans in it, so obviously there's a virus that's been introduced, but this virus seems to have been inside the TARDIS.
People don't know the name Virians comes from virus. But yes,
they don't, or they do?
No, I don't know whether people know that, but
yeah. Well, the Virans, they're the virus killers. So anyway, this virus has been created by the Daleks, and it seems to have been living in the TARDIS since the Daleks. Did I get that right? That it's been there right from the very beginning?
That was
because it's never really. So it wasn't really. I thought it might have been something I missed, but you're not clear either.
Well, that wasn't clear. I'm just not sure that I liked that. That was the bit of the storyline I actually didn't like.
Right.
And I don't like it in the next story either. And then it gets rectified in the third. So it was certainly.
Oh, that's right, because this one ends on a cliffhanger, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
That's
so
right.
the trilogies tended to be very strongly linked when they were doing the trilogies together, and so this is that virus, taking over and becoming.
And it was great to get that interplay between Colin Baker and India Fisher. Fantastic stuff. So if anyone has yet to try Charlie with the Sixth Doctor, definitely try that. But the only thing I'll say about these trilogies is, to go in, as we have done now and as I've done, as a one-off to go and review, I can't remember the details around all these other stories. So I'm going, how does that work here? And what was exactly, because I couldn't remember how Charlie got with the Sixth Doctor, because it was the girl who never was, wasn't it? That right. Was the last Eighth Doctor story.
That's why I thought I'd explain it, because I thought otherwise people have no idea what's going on.
I'm glad you did. So that's what I was thinking throughout this. It's not that, some of these trilogies, particularly this one, you can't just jump into the middle of it. You've got to go through. So that makes it a little bit hard to recommend as a standalone. You've got to recommend it with the rest of them.
It's interesting. Is it talking about phases of Big Finish, and there's definitely, and maybe one day I'll write a paper. The different phases of Big Finish, and during this phase, you really were very dependent on listening to what was before and what was coming afterwards. And so we talk about a trilogy here, but the reality is actually 9 plays, which you need to listen to in order, because there's such a strong thread going through them. But also the struggle was the previous story to this with the Sixth Doctor and Charlie was December the previous year, and so that ended in a cliffhanger. You have to wait 8 months for the next trilogy to happen and to finish it off. And then it kind of finishes off the story. It actually does. The third one does finish off the Charlie story. Mind you, they then put out a subscriber special, The Crotons, with Charlie and the Sixth Doctor, just to throw out the whole continuity, having just concluded everything. But I think it actually came out with that. I think that subscriber special came out with the third part of the trilogy. But the 9 parts to listen to are spread over 3 years. And as you said, and then it was a year before that Charlie had been picked up by the Sixth Doctor, and so it's so easy to forget what's actually happened. And the reason why I think this is all quite clear in my mind is because I went through a Charlie phase of listening to every Charlie in order, and then skipping out everything else. And so when you just listen to them one after the other, it follows on a lot more, and actually it does actually grow your excitement and enjoyment. A bit like the Marvel films. I didn't think much of the Marvel series whatsoever, because I was just sort of seeing bits and pieces along the way. And then when I actually went chronological order through them, I could actually see how it built, how they use characters and how clever it was. And this is the same. And I think Big Finish was about 4 or 5 years they were using this model of very strong interlocked stories.
Yes. Well,
and then
not long after Nick, but then was it around this time that the box set started coming out with that 7th Doctor box set with Unit and the Alex McQueen Master, Dominion, that sort of started it off. Then we got Dark Eyes and more box sets. Then we got new series license so we could do other spin-offs. So at that stage, you could keep up with the trilogies and not be overwhelmed with wanting to keep up with everything else and not have listened to so much else that you've forgotten what's gone on previously. So I think we're talking about that phase, but that was the phase Big Finish was at. There wasn't the volume of stories being released that there is now.
Yeah, and I think they worked out that their listeners were dipping in and out more often, and so I think as subscriptions started to drop and people were just dropping in and out, they had to rethink in terms of strong linking stories, because I think they thought strong linking stories what subscribers want, because they want to put their bang for their buck. But people who are going to drop in and out, they don't want strong linking stories. They want individual standalones. And so it'd be a little bit after this still, but then the standalone stories become what's happened. And also too, some people don't like the 6th Doctor, and so having 3 months of 6th Doctor was a turn off for them. And so that's where they started then rotating, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, and rotating those in, because that way people were able to just skip 1 month rather than skip 3 months. So I assume that's all part of the marketing strategy and what they were doing. But yeah, as I said, I'd love to do all the research on all this and actually look at the phases of Big Finish and what the thinking was and what worked and what didn't work. But I don't know whether we'll ever get that information. But I'd still be curious.
You start that research and I'll see you on the other side.
Okay.
All right. That's our recommendations for this installment of Randomoids.
They're not recommendations. They're our discussion points.
All right. Our reviews. Our reviews.
So I cut in again on you. Did you say everything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I did. I think, it was an enjoyable story. Always enjoyable. I remember that trilogy in particular, and I really enjoyed Paper Cuts. I don't remember the detail of Paper Cuts, but I remember really enjoying it. So maybe I might go and have a listen to that again. But no, I've got to listen to the 50 other things that I've got queued up. So shall we pick the next installment of
We've Got Randomoids
stories?
We or you?
Shall we do that?
Yeah, why don't you see what comes up?
Okay, so we've had some more technical issues, but we're back and we've just spun the Randomoid Selectortron wheel, and the first one it's come up with is A Lost Story, number 2.5, Animal by Andrew Cartmel.
Great.
So that features Brigadier Bambera and Beth Chalmers as the new companion, Rain. So we'll listen to that one first. And shall I spin again?
Yeah, why not?
So for the second one, Philip, we have had selected for us main range story number 104. It's keeping us around that same area. Doctor Who, The Bride of Peladon.
Oh, okay. Eraman's
Fifth
last
Doctor
story.
Adventure, Eraman.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's her
great
last
cover
story.
too.
It's a wonderful cover.
So I'm looking forward to doing that. That's got Nicholas Briggs, yes.
It has Nicholas Briggs too.
Yep, Perry, Eraman, written by Barnaby Edwards. So we'll give that a crack for our next Randomoids. And looking forward to it.
That'll be fantastic. Okay.
Biggest thing I'm looking forward to is catching up with you next week at Sophie's event.
Yes. See you when you fly up on Friday.
I think it's going to be ace.
It is going to be good.
All right. We'll catch you all next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, bye everyone.
This has been the Sirens of Audio episode 152, Randomoids 20, featuring reviews of the Ravelli Conspiracy and Patient Zero, with your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Original theme music composed by Joe Kramer. Our website is sirensofaudio.com. You can email us at sirensofaudio@gmail.com or contact us via any one of our socials. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll hear you next time.